What is up, everybody? I'm here with a Ret Paladin 7.2 PvP guide, and in this guide I'm going to be going over talents and honor talents, some helpful macros, a couple of specs that you can use as Ret, and lastly some comps that you can play. So getting into the talents, I'm just going to go over like the basic talents that you're going to use 90% of the time, not going into any weird things. So right off the bat, you're going to probably want Final Verdict. It's just better overall damage, boosts the damage of 10% Divine Storm, it's really good. For tier 30, you're going to want Zeal almost all the time. Fires of Justice it just isn't really worth it, and same with Greater Judgment, it's kind of irrelevant. Next up, Fist of Justice, 100% of the time almost. Except for comps where you really need a CC on one of the other DRs, or if you have tons of stuns already, but you don't really play too many comps with that. So pretty much Fist of Justice almost always reduces the cooldown of Hodge by 2.5 seconds for every single holy power spent. So they changed it, that's really helpful. So now it works for WoG, and if you use it with a proc which is Just Vengeance, it's what is it? 12.5 seconds off instead of the 7.5 seconds from Templar's Verdict. So if you're trying to get Hodge as fast as possible, you can just spam Just Vengeance procs. But yeah. Next up, tier 60. All three of these are actually really good right now. Blade of Wrath is good because Ret's crit template got buffed quite a bit, so now we have like 36% crit. So if you're using it along with Vengeance Aura, you get 50% crit. So half of these are going to crit, and they hit for a ton of damage. They can hit upwards of like 1.2 million with wings. But most of the time, you're probably going to use Blade of Wrath. Blade of Wrath, it just makes getting Holy Power a lot easier, and it does a decent amount of damage with the Blade of Wrath buff from the new artifact traits. And then lastly, Divine Hammer is so good right now. It does 40% more damage than it did last season, which is insane. Also, it's just really good if you're ever trying to just cleave a team down. So it's good against melee cleaves, and also if you're trying to play a rock comp with like a Warlock or a Shadow Priest, it's really good with that. But if you're worried about breaking CC and stuff like that, just use Blade of Wrath. It does really good damage still too. Next up, tier 75, we have Just Vengeance, Eye for an Eye, and WoG. WoG is almost irrelevant now. It did not scale well with this patch. The damage, it does just as much healing as it did last patch, even though our HP is almost double what it feels like. So it's not worth using almost ever. Eye for an Eye, pretty much use it whenever there's a melee that has a chance of going you. It's just the best in the tier, pretty much. Then you go Just Vengeance. Either you can use it to kill people in stuns, because it still does slightly more damage than Templar's Verdict now in stuns, and also if you just need a lot of self-healing, or just if you're against any caster team. Just using it with procs when you're low, it's really helpful. Also, you can get Hodge up even faster. Okay, next up, tier 90. You're just using Divine Intervention. It's auto bubble, makes so you don't have to worry about your bubble. Like, you don't have to worry about pressing bubble, which makes so you can be way more offensive and not hold globals trying to know when you're gonna have to bubble. Also, reduces the cooldown on bubble, which is kind of lame because it's so much worse than it was at the start of the X pack. But it's just so much better than the other two. Judgment Lag is absolutely atrocious. It literally does nothing. Cavalier is cool, but I feel like Cavalier should just be baseline, to be honest. Okay, so next up, tier 100. Okay, now I'm going to be going over some different specs you can use. So, your normal specs just going to be Divine Purpose, any of these three, Blade of Wrath, or Divine Hammer, everything what I have right now. That's just your basic, normal spec. But I thought of a cool idea that you could do is you could use if you're trying to just one-shot a team, because you can kind of do that now with the crit and Blade of Wrath buff. So you use Crusade, Just Vengeance, Virtue's Blade, Zeal, and Execution Sentence. and also in honor talents, you're probably going to want to use Vengeance Aura. I mean, maybe Hammer of Reckoning too. I'm not sure how much damage it does. I have to test that. So pretty much you pop Crusade, have 5 Holy Power, use Just Cause Vengeance, use your artifact, use Just Cause Vengeance again. You're at 10 stacks of Crusade, so you're doing 30% increased damage. Then just try to get one more Just Cause Vengeance off. Then you use Executions, and as you use Executions, you stun them, probably Judgment, and just when the Executions hits, try to use a Virtue's Blade that gets you enough Holy Power to use Tempor's Verdict, and it should do an insane amount of damage because Virtue's Blade does probably like 1.8 mil with this spec. Executions should hit for somewhere over like a mil, probably 1.2, and then Tempor's Verdict hits for almost a million with Crusade also, maybe more, might do less. I haven't really tested it much without Final Verdict. So that right there is almost 3 million damage in burst, which is insane. And then your other teammate, okay, when you're playing this spec, you're gonna probably want to play with the Boomy for the extra crit, so you have 65% crit chance. So you're pretty much critting almost all of your abilities. Yeah, it's just a cool spec that you can use if you're trying to one-shot things. But most of the time, for almost every other comp, you're probably just going to be wanting to use the normal Divine Purpose, and with one of these two, and Final Verdict. Next up, I'm just going to talk about the honor talents a bit. Tier 1 is completely based on whatever you want to do, except you're going to want to be Trinket most of the time. Adaptation is nowhere near as good as it used to be because you can automatically see your adaptation now, so it's way easier for teams to play around it. And then Relentless isn't the best for ret since we're not Orc, and it's better to have an instant out so you can instantly get out and sack something. Trinket, so I personally recommend just using Trinket. The second tier, Hardness is useless. Reinforced Armor, you're going to use this against pretty much anything that doesn't have a melee that's going to hit you. And then Sparring, you use it if you're going to be hit by melees pretty much. So just between these two, Caster, Melee. Next up, Tier 3, Jurisdiction, Unbound Freedom, Law and Order. Unbound Freedom is useless. Jurisdiction is going to be used most of the time. And then you use Law and Order if you're playing a comp that doesn't have a constant slow. Like if you're playing with a Shadow Priest or something like that, you use Law and Order. It can be annoying not having the extra Hodge range because it can be kind of hard to get Hodge, but having the constant slow makes it easier to catch up the targets you're trying to Hodge. Next up, these two are completely trash. You're just going to want to use Luminescence 100% of the time, at least for 3s. Cleansing Light, it's so much worse than it used to be. It's a 4-second cooldown, it's on you, so it still uses a global, and it's just not as good. You might as well just spam cleanse on cooldown. It's not that bad of a cooldown. I think it's, 8 seconds, yeah. Holy Ritual. I mean, Holy Ritual is good if you're dueling or playing 2s without a healer, since you can't heal yourself with Lumi. It doesn't work for your heals with Lumi anymore. It's just a decent heal, I guess, if you don't have a healer. Then next up, this tier, Seraphim's Blessings is useless. You're going to use Blessing Sanctuary almost 100% of the time, and then Vengeance Aura is just against teams that don't have too many stuns or fears or something that you can sack, or if it's a comp that's going to pretty much cover you 100% of the time that you're trying to sack a stun or something, or that's pretty much it. Or if you're just trying to win off damage and not really worry about it, just go for the one shot as fast as possible. But pretty much you're going to want to use Blessing Sanctuary almost all the time. It's just really good. Gets you out of stuns, fears, silences. Good against almost every class. Okay, so next up, last tier, you're just going to play Lawbringer. Divine Punisher is not that good. Hammer of Reckoning, I don't think it does anywhere near enough damage to be worth using, and the cooldown's kind of long, it's a minute. And Lawbringer, the damage from Lawbringer is just so good. and it makes it so that your Templar's Verdict damage is always buffed from the buff of Judgment, which makes it so your Templar's Verdict damage or any holy power using abilities is increased by how much mastery you have. I think in Arena you have, I think about this much, like 34% mastery. I'm not 100% sure, I kind of forgot about the template. But either way, then along with that, it does 5% of someone's health whenever you Judgment, which is really good, obviously. And if you get the new talent, it just spreads Judgment ever. So every single time you Judgment, it just rots the entire team for 5%, which can be really good. So yeah, that's about it for talents. This is the basic spec that you're gonna use. Place these two, place these two. Yeah, this is about right. So yeah, next up, I'm gonna be going into macros. Okay, so now I'm gonna go into macros. I'm pretty much just gonna go over the macros that I use. So I just use focus and just input names and stuff. I don't use 1, 2, 3 and party macros because I'm stupid. So yeah, let's get into it. So first off, Bop. I have one for my team, for my healer, and one for my DPS. Then I just have it for myself, just key down, just no macro, because if you're not targeting a teammate or anything like that, it'll automatically be on you. So yeah, next up, Bop, that bubble macro is just cancel Bop, so that you can prevent it from getting spell stolen from mage or something like that. Next up, cleanse, just cleanse DPS, cleanse healer. Then once again, same with Bop. If you're not targeting someone, you just cleanse yourself. Next, flash, same thing with the other things. Flash DPS, flash healer. Then I flash myself somewhere down there. Freedom's the same thing. Then I have a Healthstone macro because Healthstone doesn't usually, if you get it in Arena, it won't stay on your bars the next game. It's just good to have a macro for it, so you don't have to worry about re-putting it on your bars every game. Next up, I have Focus Hodge, and then I have also just an on-target Hodge. You could have 1, 2, 3 here, so Hodge 1, Hodge 2, Hodge 3, but I just use Focus, so that's all I have. Same thing with Kick. You could have 1, 2, 3, but I just have Focus and on target. Next up, Kings. It's kind of the same as with Bop and all the other things, except I have a macro for myself, but you can just use a normal one like this because I'm not targeting anyone, so Kings is me. Wing, I even need the Wings macro. Then Sack macro, same with everything else. DPS 1, healer 1, and if you're not targeting someone, it'll just be used on yourself. So that's kind of about it for macros. Next up, I will go over some comps that Rec can play. Okay, next up with comps. So, believe it or not, Ret's actually pretty versatile. It can probably play with almost any other DPS in the game. But obviously it does better with some. Like, Ret Hunter is probably the best Ret comp. Ret Shadow Priest is really strong. I haven't tried Ret Boomy this patch, but I feel like it could be really good with the crit buff Boomy gives. Yeah, Ret can pretty much play with anything. Ret DK is good. Ret Warrior is pretty good. I think Ret Enhance is actually really good because Lust plus Wings could be insane. Even Ret Windwalker can be good now because Windwalker now has that talent that gives their teammates 600 haste. That 600 mastery, and that's about 10% increased mastery. So you'll have, I think in Arena you have about 30% mastery, so you'll have 40% mastery. All your abilities will be doing 10% more damage, which is really good. Plus they have their own stuns, so they could stun kill target while you could Hodge healer. So that could be really good. Ret Lock would probably work because Lock's just insane, and Ret just would help its survivability a bit. Plus, if you need a peel for Ret, Locks have fears and off DR stuns and things to use. What else is there? Ret Feral probably isn't the best, but it could do decent. I tried it a bit last season, was around like 24, 25-ish with it. What else is there? Ret Mage would probably be pretty good. The only problem with it is there's no MS, but with how much CC it has, it might just not even need it. Ret Ellie is probably really good. It was really good at the start of this X-Pack, so it'd probably be fine now. You guys can just cleave a ton. Yeah, just Brett works with almost everything decently well, so you don't really have to be too picky about partners. But obviously, Ret Hunter, Ret Shadow Priest, Ret Lock, Ret Boomy are probably your better comps. So that's about it. At this time, Bret's not really in the best of places, but it might actually do a lot better because they reduced the damage that every class does by 5% recently in hotfix. So it might not die as easily because our verse is just so low that it makes it, I mean, outside of Arena, in Arena we have 8% verse, while other classes have like 30 to 40. We're just so much squishier compared to every other target class, but we do have Bubble. Bubble is such a good cooldown. Cooldown's a bit long for it though, but either way, Red's damage is really good, so it could do fine. If you're playing with a class that has good utility, like for you, like Hunter with Sack or Resto Shaman with Urshield, you could do pretty fine. So, hope that helped you guys out. Peace.